in wrestling, the more offense you have, the more points you score, the more often you're gonna win. I'm looking forward to, the team in general, how we jump from last season to this season, and how all the individuals on the team get to perform, and can they reach what they expect, buy into the program, and I believe everyone is, myself included. And I'm excited. And I told you earlier that I think we'll be a top 5 team. Might sound delusional now, but it's gonna happen. It's gonna happen.
What's up, everybody? Breakdown from the Barn, episode 53. We're here again with Dylan Shawver, Rutgers All American, Big Ten champion. With me, as always, the greatest mind in wrestling, Eric Winnock. How you making out, Dylan?
Doing great. I'm excited to be on episode 2.
Nice. Yeah, so we broke this up into a 2-part series. We know a lot of the Rutgers fans have been excited to have you on. So we're going to get to some questions from some of our listeners. This first question is from, I don't know, you might know him. He's on Instagram, Southside Bandino. Do you know him? Yeah, he wants to know about wrestling growing up. And, how was wrestling growing up back in the day? And who would you say you had your toughest match with?
Yeah, this is that's my cousin. So but wrestling growing up, I actually got into wrestling. My mom wanted me put me into gymnastics, and my dad was like, no shot. So he's like, I'm gonna go, he's gonna put me into wrestling. And then my cousin, Brando, him and my other 2 cousins, they wrestled. They're a little bit older than me. And so I followed in their footsteps a little bit. And I started at Southview, and then after 1 year, that's when I transitioned to Ron Burnett, and then that's where I flowed from there. But growing up, my mom and my dad always said, "Let's go to these camps, keep going to them. It's going to be worth it in the future." And looking back at it now, like right now, it's definitely worth it. So without my parents pushing me not being pushing, just making me go to these, I'm grateful for that. They kept on me, stayed on me, and that now I'm in this position I'm in now.
Yeah, that's good stuff. And you were mentioned about Burnett Training. So, in fact, one of our listeners, Pat G, we were talking about this, and he was curious to hear as well. Talk to us about Burnett Training in Ohio and kind of what impact in general Burnett had on you in your wrestling career.
Yeah, so first, Ron Burnett. I was originally a righty wrestler, right foot lead. He made me a lefty lead. And
Wow.
I remember the last time he told me I was wrestling righty. He was like, you know what? You don't want to learn lefty? He's like, just keep wrestling righty. Suck then. Just suck. And then ever since that happened, it stuck with me. I was like, all right, I'm gonna wrestle lefty. And ever since then, I wrestled lefty. And I'm thankful for that, because that high crotch is pretty nice.
Yes, it is.
Left side. But
Mhm.
and then eventually I went to Eric Burnett, his son. And I look at Eric as like another dad. He's always been in my corner. He's always been there on my side for as long as since I was little. And without him and his support and his family, I wouldn't have the kind of wrestling I have now, because he really made me become who I am as a person and as a wrestler.
Yeah, so
That's
one
good
thing
stuff.
off that lefty lead, I heard you might dabble in some MMA afterwards. You have plans for that?
Yeah, that's something I want to do right after college. 2 more years and I'm going right into it. So
Yeah, so what's really cool about, you might not know it, but because you're now leading with your left foot, right? You're right-handed though, right?
yeah.
Yeah, see, a lot of wrestlers, like I did MMA, and I ended up boxing lefty. I learned boxing lefty because your stance, if your right foot's forward, is a lefty stance, right? So that could work out for you. If your left foot's forward and you're right-handed, that could be a big plus for you, because then you could box righty and wrestle in the same stance, So I don't know if you
Yeah.
thought about that, but that's going to probably be a big advantage for you going MMA.
Yeah, I really didn't think about it like that. So like that's a great advantage for me. I definitely gonna use it, and hopefully you see me on the TV at UFC soon.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'd like to see that, man. Definitely. And there's been some good guys, a few nice, I think somebody made the Rutgers Hall of Fame recently for
Yeah.
doing MMA. So there's a few guys in the room, I think that can help you out with that. Taking it back to Ohio and talking about Ohio wrestling and New Jersey wrestling, and just curious from you if you've seen any cultural differences, because when you think of wrestling, you think of New Jersey, Pennsylvania, Ohio, Northern California, but obviously there's differences. And, people from Pennsylvania have got their different views on things. So anything you've seen culturally that's different between, say, the Ohio scene and the Jersey scene?
Ah, Jersey has that Jersey toughness, And that's something that you know, I I've used for myself and just like keep going, I guess. But I mean, cultural difference. I mean, I can't really say. I don't really know, to be honest. But because I'm always gonna be an Ohio guy. I mean, I'm always gonna believe Ohio's better. But I guess you can say I'm a Jersey head now. I've been here for what, going on 5 years. I love it here. So and yeah, I don't really know.
So we were talking about obviously I was mentioning Northern California, Ohio, Pennsylvania, all these different states with top wrestling. When Coach Goodell first took over the program, he talked about building that fence around Jersey, saying we got to keep our Jersey recruits home. In a recent interview, he's basically taken a little step back. He's like, you know what? Obviously bringing in Coach Middick and some of the other guys on staff, he kind of realized we've got to open things up. We've got to kind of branch out a little bit. So obviously bringing in wrestlers like yourselves from Ohio. Okay, we've tapped into California. We've now brought in some big recruits from Pennsylvania. So what effect, Dylan, do you think that's had in the room, in the sense that it's not just Jersey? We've now kind of expanded and gone into different states with top wrestling. Kind of talk us through that, kind of in the room, what it's like to have all these different backgrounds.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, Goodell, they would love to keep the New Jersey guys in state. And but sometimes if you want to be that top team, that top level team, you have to reach out to these other states. And Middich being a huge part of bringing all these PA guys, it's all about the different looks in the room. The more looks you have, the more looks you're gonna have in a match.
Yeah.
And that's something that's really key in wrestling, having all these looks. So being able to recruit all the way on the what all the way to Cali, that's huge. Being able to have these guys travel all the way here, and that just shows that we have a great support system. Me being from Ohio, that's an 8.5 hour drive. Cali, that's a fly. You got to fly from Cali to here. So just knowing that we have that support system to where people are comfortable being uncomfortable at first. So that's pretty huge, I'd say.
Yeah, it's kind of like we were talking about before in the earlier show, where this Rutgers fan base just embraces you when you come in. So I think that's a big part of it for these guys coming in out of state to kind of take them in as they're their own, and it's a really good thing we got going on here. So
Yeah.
I want to get to a couple questions from our man Jake Klein, born in the 4th of July, movie star. He asked a couple questions, so we got to get these in. So first, one thing he says is, where did you get the confidence to just pull the trigger in a split second? He says, you seem like no matter who you're wrestling, once there's an opening, you just kind of go for it. So where do you develop that confidence?
Yeah, I mean, in wrestling, the more offense you have, the more points you score, the more often you're gonna win. And I have a little phrase: you miss 100% of the shots you don't take, and I use that in wrestling. And whenever I see an opening, I shoot, I take that shot. And a lot of these guys don't shoot. They're not. You got to be risky when you're wrestling. You can't be a defensive wrestler. Not many people win matches like that. And I believe shooting is key in wrestling. That's part of the sport. That's how you win matches. So I guess I just have that confidence. I have confidence in my high C. I train that. I train a bunch of other moves in the wrestling room. And yeah, it all leads to the wrestling room. If you're not risky in the wrestling room and in practice, that's not going to translate into a match. So it all comes back to the wrestling room and just believing in yourself. Uh, just really believing in yourself.
Yeah, it's not just shooting with your offense. It's the way you set it up, how close you get in. When you take your shots, you're in deep. Okay. So it's not just, shooting from 20 feet out and just
Yeah.
taking bad shots. Cause I know John and I have talked about that in the past. Sometimes our selection of shots isn't the best, but I felt like, especially in the second half of the year, it wasn't just the shots you take, it's your ability to kind of close that gap and hit that high C, and bam, it's like when you take that shot, you're in deep.
Yeah, I like to be patient. I don't like to rush anything. If you watch my blood round match with Teskey, I was I was down 3-0, but I had riding time going in the third period. I was just hand fighting with Teskey the whole time, and then I looked at the clock. I heard my coaches say a minute 20, and I told my coaches I was like, I need you guys to say these times because I'm not constantly looking at the clock, and that's something they've done for me, which helped me a lot because I wasn't clock watching as much as I was, and yeah, I was hand fighting them. I heard a minute 20, minute 25, can't remember the exact number, and then I was like, all right, I gotta go. I went to my old reliable, went to my high crotch, and I got in on it. And that's all I needed. I needed one shot in third period. And I like you can't rush anything. It's gotta be patient and you gotta set it up. Setup's key in wrestling.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. Another question he asked about, you going up to 133. He said, what do you think helped you most this year? Do you think it was more you talked about being able to get bigger and not worrying about the weight cut, or do you think it was more like you do seem like you have a lot of mental toughness out there? So which one would you say was the biggest advantage this year?
I'd say it's a combination of both, you know. I wasn't making 25. I wasn't as miserable as I was, which allowed me to make gains in the weight room. You know, I wasn't cutting as much weight as some of these guys. And my mental toughness, I manifest a lot of things. Like I talk about it, I tell it to my teammates, and some of my teammates are like, "Oh, he's delusional." At the beginning of the season, maybe they're like, "Oh yeah, he's delusional." But coming to the end of the season, they're like, "Holy shit, this guy, he was right." You know, I
Yep.
didn't become a national champion like I wanted to be, but I know I made huge jumps. I saw a growth from last season to this season, which is great. You know, and
Well, you're not a national champion yet, but you build off what you had last season. You've got plenty of time to do it.
yeah, and that's something I will accomplish before my career's over. I like to say next year, and then in Philly and in Cleveland. That's just me talking, but that is gonna happen.
Well, we're going to be in Philly to see that, so I would love to see you in the finals. My son's first experience at a national championship was at Pittsburgh, where he got to see Suriano, a national, get their hands raised. So we're going to be in Philadelphia. So I would like for his second experience at a national championship to be able to see another Rutgers wrestler, Dylan Shawver, get his arm raised. So that'll be good stuff. But before we get to the national championship next year, let's talk about some of the stuff you're doing on the side. You mentioned clinics before, so any other clinics that you're working toward? Anything you want to promote that's coming up this summer?
Uh yeah, I have a clinic back home in Ohio, June 28th, at the Grappling Grapplers at Midview High School. I know a lot of the probably listeners are from Jersey, but I'm sure when it comes out, I have Ohio listeners. So, you know, if you can make that. And then I also have another one, Sterling High School. I think it's the June 19th and 20th, down in yeah, Sterling High School. So that's another one. And then I have one more in Vermont, but that's a little distance away from this area.
That's all right. We got fans all across the country. So John will make sure we'll get the
We'll send
information.
them out. Just when I see them, I try to repost them, so we'll get them out to people. Why don't I ask you this, Dylan? I got a couple other questions. Like, was there any match this year that really stood out to you? You had a lot of really good ones where it seemed like you broke the opponent and got that takedown with split seconds left. What match this year kind of stood out to you the most?
From like a winning side or like a losing side?
Either way.
Uh, I mean, I'll say from losing, I'll give you my losing side first. When I lost to Sam Latona in the Virginia Tech match, that one really stood out to me. And now, like 2 days later, I lost to Braden Basil from Army. But those two specific matches stuck out to me because, like I said, I went to Worlds and I went on one, and that I was like down in the dumps, I guess you'd say. And the Latona match specifically is supposed to be my comeback match. This is the match where, I prove I'm meant to be at 133. I'm meant to be here, and I end up losing in overtime. Arguably he was stalling a little bit, but
Yeah, I was gonna say you brought it to him in that match. In
yeah,
fact, we were not to cut you off, but when you said Latona, I was like, oh my God, I was thinking about that because I remember watching that match, and there was a couple times I swore his toe touched the out of bounds there, those long legs of him. So no, I thought you brought it to him. I thought that was a hell of a match.
yeah. Well, thank you, but yeah, you can't ever let the refs in the match. You got that's why shooting is important, scoring, being offensive. That's why I like being a risk taker. And then that stuck out to me. And then I lost to Basil from Army, and I was like, fuck, man, am I meant to be here anymore? Like I already had two bad matches. I had a bad freestyle season, I guess you'd say. It's like and I really like, I guess that's where the mental toughness comes. Like if I almost gave up, but I didn't. I kept going, and that's something that you can apply to life. Like you can't give up on something that you love. And that's something I almost did. But I got back up and I just kept going. And then I told myself I'm gonna be the hardest worker in the wrestling room. And that's something I still believe that I did. I worked my hardest in that wrestling room and it showed. And then I guess you say two matches that really stuck to me winning wise is my Big Ten finals match. I got that rematch with Ragson from the two times he beat me in the season,
Yeah.
and I let it fly out there, and just being able to get interviewed and just talking about how that match went. That's something I always dreamed of doing. I never was able to be one of those guys that got interviewed like that, and that's something that one of my goals actually, and I accomplished that. And then my All American round match, I got taken down first, and it showed a lot of adversity, and I had to come back. And like I said, in third, I rode him out actually. I rode him out, and that's something I haven't done the whole season. And I rode two people out at nationals, so that just shows how much I've been working on top, and how much Midish has helped me on top in Pollard.
Yep.
And that third period comes by, I stayed tough throughout the whole match, and I got that final takedown and rode him out to win, and eventually got back points to solidify it. So yeah, those two matches that I lost really stuck out to me. And those two matches that I won, or like probably what my matches are.
It's funny because I was thinking about when you were mentioning the Army match, because I think I recall that that was in a tournament and there was a lot of scrambles that I think you just came up short on in that match. But when you think in terms of we were talking to CJ Composto last year, another All-American from UPenn, and we were talking about, how do you take an approach against some of the lower level wrestlers? And he put it plainly. He's like, listen, at this level, there is no lower level. Everyone, I mean, the difference, obviously, you've got, the all-time great wrestlers, your Taylors, your Dakes, and so forth, your Burrows. But really, the bottom line is if you are on an NCAA mat and you're a recruited wrestler, there's such a slight difference between individuals. You can't take anyone lightly. So I think to be able to come back from that and realize the fact that anyone's beatable and anyone can beat you, I think that's something you can learn from.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. You can't take anyone lightly. Everyone's trying to reach their own goals, and they believe they should be in this spot, and you're not to be in that spot. So, and like especially at the D1 level, everyone's a great wrestler. They all came here for a reason. They're all gonna try to show out for a reason.
Yeah, without a doubt, Dylan. Anything else big you're looking forward to next year? I know it's going to be a fire season. I'm excited to be in Philly. Anything else you're looking forward to? Any matchup with the team? Anything else you're looking forward to next year?
I'm looking forward to, the team in general, how we jump from last season to this season, and how all the individuals on the team get to perform, and can they reach what they expect, And that, like I said, that just goes back to the wrestling room, how if you buy into the program, and I believe everyone is, myself included, and I'm excited. And I told you earlier that I think we'll be a top 5 team. Might sound delusional now, Rutgers, but it's gonna happen. It's gonna hapen.
Yeah, you guys got the manpower. I think if everyone goes up one level from last year and all return heavy fire, that's not that delusional to get up there and be the top 5 team and compete with these guys. So I'm excited for it. I'm going to be rocking in Philly next year. We'll be at Jersey Mike's Arena. Hey, thanks for coming on the show, Dylan. Listen, follow the show. Follow Dylan Shawver on Instagram. Follow his camps. We'll get that information out, and we'll talk to you guys later, man.